The crimson warning lights of Jackson. Bale's stolen shuttle painted the cramped cockpit in hellish hues as corporate security vessels closed in behind him. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits while the ship bucked and shuddered under enemy fire. His weathered hands gripped the controls with white-knuckled determination, salt and pepper beard damp with perspiration as he pushed the craft beyond its design limits. "Come on, you piece of junk," he growled, dodging another plasma burst that sizzled past the viewport. The cargo hold behind him contained 3 Zerathi ceremonial orbs, artifacts worth enough to fund his research for a decade. If he could, just reach neutral territory. The moon of Kithros 7 loomed ahead, its surface shrouded in perpetual violet mists. Ancient texts marked it as forbidden, a world where no sentient being dared tread. It's perfect for losing his pursuers. Jackson angled toward the atmosphere, feeling the shuttle's hull groan as gravity took hold. Corporate security to stolen vessel crackled through the cum. "Surrender immediately or face destruction. You have 10 seconds to comply." Jackson's weathered face twisted into a grim smile. "I've got your compliance right here," he muttered, cutting power to everything but life support and engines. The shuttle plummeted through the mists like a meteor, disappearing from the security ship's sensors. The landscape below was alien, and haunting crystalline formations jutted from purple soil like frozen screams, while bioluminescent fungi cast an ethereal glow across vast cavern networks. But it was the structure directly ahead that made Jackson's archaeological heart race despite his dire circumstances. A massive temple complex rose from the planet's surface, its architecture unlike anything in known galactic databases, spiraling. Towers twisted impossibly upward, their surfaces covered in glowing hieroglyphs that pulsed with internal light. The entire structure seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting in a rhythm that reminded him uncomfortably of a sleeping giant. The shuttle's engines finally gave out completely, and Jackson braced for impact. The craft struck the temple's outer courtyard with bone-jarring force, carving a deep furrow through what appeared to be living stone before coming to rest against an ornate wall. Silence settled over the crash site like a shroud. Jackson checked himself for injuries, bruised ribs, a cut on his forehead, but nothing fatal. The cargo hold had held together, keeping his stolen prizes secure. Through the cracked viewport, he could see the temple's entrance just 50 meters away, its doorway sealed by what looked like liquid mercury flowing in impossibly complex patterns. As he gathered his equipment and the precious orbs, Jackson noticed something disturbing. The hieroglyphs on the nearest wall were changing, symbols shifting and rearranging themselves as if responding to his presence. The very air seemed to thicken, carrying whispers in a language that predated known civilization. With no other options and corporate security surely tracking his crash site, Jackson approached the temple entrance. The moment he stepped within, 3 meters of the mercury barrier, it parted like curtains, revealing a corridor that stretched into luminous darkness beyond. Just a quick shelter, he told himself, hefting his pack. Long enough to plan my next move. The instant his boot crossed the threshold, the mercury sealed behind him with a sound like a dying breath. Ancient mechanisms stirred to life throughout the temple, and somewhere in its depths, something vast and terrible began to awaken. Jackson Vale, rogue archaeologist and thief, had just violated the most sacred site in this sector of the galaxy, and he was about to discover that some treasures demand a price far greater than credits or freedom. The forbidden sanctum had claimed another trespasser. The temple's corridors pulsed with bioluminescent veins that tracked Jackson's every movement, casting his shadow in shifting patterns across walls covered in living hieroglyphs. Each step echoed with unnatural resonance, as if the structure itself was listening. The stolen Zerathi orbs in his pack grew warm against his back, their crystalline surfaces humming in harmony with the temple's alien heartbeat. Jackson had explored dozens of archaeological sites, but nothing had prepared him for this. The air tasted of ozone and ancient secrets, thick enough to feel against his skin. Temperature fluctuated wildly, scorching heat one moment, bone-deep cold the next, as if the temple couldn't decide whether he was welcome or prey. He rounded a corner and stopped dead. Before him stretched a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in shadows high above. Floating platforms of black stone drifted in lazy circles around a central dais, where something that defied description waited in the darkness. The platforms moved without visible means of propulsion, their surfaces etched with the same shifting symbols that decorated every surface. "Magnificent," Jackson whispered, his archaeological instincts overriding caution. He stepped onto the nearest platform, which immediately began carrying him toward the chamber's heart. The Zerathi orbs in his pack pulsed brighter, their resonance growing stronger with each passing second. That's when he saw her. The figure materialized from shadow and starlight, rising from the central dais, like a nightmare-given form. Priestess Zithara stood nearly 3 meters tall, her elongated frame draped in robes that seemed woven from the void between stars. Her skin was midnight blue, marked with silver tattoos that moved like living serpents across her flesh. It was her eyes that made Jackson's blood freeze, twin galaxies of ancient fury, swirling with the light of dying suns. "Mortal fool." Her voice boomed through the chamber, each word carrying the weight of millennia. The floating platforms shuddered, and several smaller ones cracked under the force of her rage. "You dare set foot in the sanctum of eternal whispers? You dare carry stolen relics into this most sacred space?" Jackson raised his hands in what he hoped was a peaceful gesture, though his heart hammered against his ribs. "I meant no disrespect. I was fleeing corporate security, and this seemed like silence." Zithara's form blazed with silver fire, and the tattoos on her skin writhed faster, forming symbols that hurt to look at directly. "Do you know what you have done, ignorant creature? The orbs you carry were blessed in the pools of Zareth Prime, touched by the First Mothers themselves. And now you bring them here, to the resting place of the dreaming gods." The chamber around them began to change. Stone flowed like water, reshaping itself into new configurations. The floating platforms spun faster, creating a dizzying maze of moving architecture. At the chamber's heart, something vast stirred beneath the dais, something that had been sleeping for eons and was now beginning to wake. "The sacred geometries are corrupted," Zethra hissed, her form growing larger, more terrible. Her robes billowed without wind, revealing glimpses of a form that was more energy than flesh. "Your presence, combined with the stolen relics, has begun the unmaking. The barriers between dimensions grow thin. Cracks appeared in the air itself, revealing glimpses of alien landscapes and impossible colors that made Jackson's eyes water. Through these dimensional rifts, he caught sight of vast shapes moving in spaces that shouldn't exist, the dreaming gods that Zethara had mentioned. Ancient beings whose slumber maintained the cosmic order. "I can fix this," Jackson said desperately, backing toward the edge of his platform. "Just tell me how to undo whatever I've done." Zethara's laugh was like the sound of civilizations falling. "Fix, mortal insect. You have committed the ultimate sacrilege. The only fitting punishment is death, slow, agonizing death as your essence is fed to the hungry void." She raised her arms, and the chamber's walls began closing in.
How the floating
Platforms tilted at impossible angles, trying to dump Jackson into the growing dimensional rifts. Silver fire wreathed her fingers as she prepared to unleash forces that would unmake him at the molecular level. That's when the temple's main entrance exploded. Inward, through the smoke and debris, stepped another figure, lean, predatory, with the confident stride of someone accustomed to violence. Captain Nyx Corin had arrived, and she was not happy about her quarry choosing such an inconvenient hiding place. The three of them, thief, guardian, and hunter, were about to become unlikely allies in the face of an even greater threat. Captain Nyx Corin stepped through the smoking ruins of the temple entrance, her plasma rifle trained on the chaotic scene before her. The bounty hunter's augmented eyes quickly adjusted to the chamber's shifting illumination, cataloging threats with military precision. Her scarred face remained impassive beneath a mane of steel-gray hair, though internally she cursed Jackson Vale's talent for finding the most dangerous hiding spots in the galaxy. "Well, this is new," she muttered, taking in the floating platforms, and the towering alien priestess who was clearly about to incinerate her bounty. "Vale, you've really outdone yourself this time." Zethara whirled toward the new intruder, her galaxy eyes blazing brighter. Another trespasser of the sacred space. The silver fire around her hands intensified, and several dimensional rifts widened in response to her fury. "I will feed you both to the dreaming gods." "Lady, I don't know what kind of cosmic temper tantrum you're throwing," Nick said, shouldering her rifle with practiced ease, "but that man is worth 50,000 credits to me alive. So let's all take a deep breath," and the temple shuddered violently, cutting off her words. Through the destroyed entrance came the whine of military-grade engines and the harsh bark of amplified voices. Corporate security had found them. Tension. "Criminals," Director Voss Meridian's voice echoed through the chamber via combat drone. "You are surrounded. Surrender the stolen artifacts immediately, or face orbital bombardment. You have 60 seconds to comply." Jackson's face went pale. "Orbital bombardment? They'll destroy the entire temple." "As if I would allow such desecration," Zethar snarled, but her tone carried new uncertainty. The dimensional rifts were growing larger, and through them came sounds that made reality itself shiver. The stirring of beings whose dreams shaped the fundamental forces of the universe. Nyx's augmented. Hearing picked up the distinctive whine of charging particle cannons from orbit. Her tactical implants calculated trajectory and yield enough. "Firepower to glass half the moon?" 45 seconds, she announced grimly. The unlikely trio found themselves trapped in an impossible situation. Corporate forces surrounded the temple, preparing to level it from orbit. The sacred site was unraveling reality around them, threatening to wake cosmic entities that could reshape existence itself. And somewhere in the growing chaos, ancient safeguards were beginning to activate. "The dreaming gods must not wake," Zethra said, her fury giving way to desperate urgency. "If the dimensional barriers collapse completely, the consequences will ripple across the galaxy. Entire star systems could be unmade." Nyx's tactical mind immediately grasped the implications. "How long until point of no return?" "Minutes, perhaps less," the priestess replied, her form flickering between solid flesh and pure energy as the temple's chaos affected even her ancient nature. Jackson pulled the three Zerathi orbs from his pack, their crystalline surfaces now blazing with internal light. "These are connected to whatever's happening. Maybe if we return them to wherever they belong in the heart chamber," Zethara interrupted, pointing toward a passage that was slowly sealing itself as the temple's structure continued shifting. "But the path is treacherous, and we have so little time." Another transmission crackled through the combat drone. 30 seconds to bombardment. Final warning. Nyx made the decision that would define the next few hours of their lives. She grabbed both Jackson and the priestess, her enhanced strength easily supporting their weight, and activated her personal shield generator. "Then we move fast. Vale, you know the way to this heart chamber?" "The orbs are pulling toward it," Jackson said, feeling the artifact's resonance growing stronger in one particular direction. "They want to go home, and I know the temple's defenses." Zethara added, her earlier murderous rage replaced by grim determination. "Together, we might succeed." As the countdown reached 15 seconds, the three unlikely allies sprinted toward the sealing passage. Behind them, reality continued to fracture, and above them, death reigned from the stars. But ahead lay their only hope, the heart chamber, where the stolen artifacts might restore balance before cosmic forces beyond imagination escaped their eternal prison. The temple's corridors twisted around them like a living maze, responding to their desperate flight with obstacles that defied physics and reason. Time was running out, and somewhere in the darkness ahead, an even greater threat was preparing to make his move. Director Voss Meridian stood on the bridge of his flagship Profit Margin, watching the temple through tactical displays with the cold satisfaction of a predator cornering its prey. His pale, angular face showed no emotion as countdown timers ticked toward 0, though his manicured fingers drummed against the command console with barely contained anticipation. "Sir, orbital cannons are locked on target," reported his security chief, cybernetically enhanced woman whose loyalty had been purchased with extensive body modifications. "Shall we commence bombardment?" Voss raised a hand, studying the energy. Readings streaming from the moon's surface. The stolen Zerathi artifacts were somewhere in that temple, along with the rogue archaeologist who had dared steal from Meridian Dynamics. But something else was happening down there. Energy signatures that didn't match any known technology. "Delay bombardment," he ordered, ignoring the surprised looks from his bridge crew. Deploy ground teams. Want those artifacts recovered, intact, and I want Vale alive to face corporate justice. The truth was, Voss had been tracking more than just stolen property. Intelligence suggested that the Zirathi orbs were keys to something far more valuable than their material worth, ancient technology that could revolutionize interstellar travel. Weapons systems, even dimensional manipulation. The kind of discovery that could elevate Meridian Dynamics from a major corporation to the dominant force in known space. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy fluctuations from the temple," his science officer reported nervously. "The readings are ... unusual, almost. Like space-time distortions." Voss smiled coldly. "Perfect. Whatever ancient systems Vale had accidentally activated would make the artifacts even more valuable. Initiate full tactical deployment. I want assault teams in heavy armor, reality anchors, and dimensional stabilizers. Whatever's happening down there, we're going to control it." The first wave of corporate troops descended from orbit in armored dropships, their black hulls gleaming with Meridian Dynamics logos. Voss had spared no expense. These weren't ordinary security guards, but elite mercenaries equipped with military-grade weapons and armor designed to function in exotic environments. As the ships landed around the temple, their passengers deployed with mechanical precision. 50 soldiers in powered armor, their faces hidden behind tactical visors that displayed constantly updating threat assessments. They moved in perfect formation, guided by Voss's strategic overview from orbit. "Team Alpha, secure the perimeter. Team Beta, begin temple breach. I want containment fields around any artifact signatures," Voss commanded through the tactical network. His voice carried the absolute authority of someone accustomed to bending reality to his will through sheer wealth and influence. But the temple had other ideas. The moment corporate boots touched the sacred ground, the structure's defenses activated. Walls that had stood motionless for millennia suddenly flowed like liquid, creating new passages while sealing others. Gravity reversed in random sections, sending soldiers tumbling through dimensional rifts that opened and closed without warning. "Sir, we're taking casualties," Team Alpha's leader reported as 3 of his soldiers simply vanished into a rift that tasted colors and sang mathematical equations. "The architecture is actively hostile." Voss leaned forward in his command chair, fascination overriding concern. For his expendable assets. Fascinating. "The temple is responding to intrusion with autonomous defense systems. Continue the advance. Deploy reality anchors to stabilize the dimensional fluctuations." Deep within the temple, the corporate intrusion registered as a new threat to the cosmic balance. Ancient systems that had slumbered for eons began fully awakening. Their purpose simple: protect the dreaming gods from any force that might disturb their eternal rest. The reality anchors. Devices designed to stabilize space-time in areas of dimensional flux had an unexpected effect. Instead of calming the temple's defenses, they seemed to enrage them. The structure's pulse quickened. The dimensional rifts began spawning something far worse than spatial distortions. Creatures of living shadow began emerging from the cracks in reality, beings that existed in the spaces between dimensions, hungry for substance and form. They fell upon the corporate soldiers with terrible hunger, phasing through armor as if it were paper, draining life force and leaving behind empty suits that collapsed like deflated balloons. "Abort ground operation," the security chief shouted. As casualty reports flooded in, "We've lost half of Team Beta to unknown hostiles." But Voss's eyes gleamed with avarice as he watched the tactical feeds. These weren't just artifacts he was after. This was a weapons system beyond imagination. The proper study in reverse engineering. Meridian Dynamics could field an army of dimensional horrors that could conquer entire sectors. "Negative," he said coldly. "Increased deployment. I want those artifacts, and I want the technology that's creating these phenomena. Route all available forces to the temple. If necessary, we'll dig Vala and those relics out of the rubble." In the temple's depths, Jackson, Nyx, and Zathera heard the sounds of corporate warfare echoing through the corridors. Reality was unraveling. Around them, cosmic forces stirred from their slumber. And now they faced an enemy whose greed might doom the entire galaxy. The race to the heart chamber had become a desperate fight for survival against forces both ancient and modern. Fate of dimensional stability hanging in the balance. In the temple's deepest chamber, where the architecture defied all known laws of physics, the unlikely alliance finally reached their destination. The heart chamber existed in a space between spaces, its walls formed from crystallized time itself. At the chamber's center floated a consciousness older than stellar formation, the Oracle Kathira, an AI entity that had witnessed the birth of galaxies and the dreams of gods. Jackson staggered forward, the three Zerathi orbs now blazing so brightly they threatened to burn through his pack. Around them, reality continued its slow dissolution, as dimensional rifts spread like cracks in broken glass. Through these tears came glimpses of the dreaming gods, vast entities whose slumbering thoughts maintained the fundamental constants that kept the universe stable. Placed the artifacts in the resonance pool, commanded a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The Oracle Kathira manifested as a shifting geometric pattern of pure light, its form constantly reorganizing itself into new configurations of impossible beauty. Nyx kept her weapon ready, though she wasn't sure what good it would do against cosmic forces. And then what? The corporate army up there isn't going to just leave because we returned some stolen property. The artifacts were never the true issue, Kathura replied, its voice carrying harmonics that made their bones vibrate. Director Meridian seeks to weaponize powers beyond his comprehension. His reality anchors have accelerated the dimensional collapse. In approximately 12 minutes, the barriers containing the dreaming gods will fail completely. Zethra's form flickered between physical matter and pure energy as the chamber's exotic fields affected even her ancient constitution. Speak plainly, Oracle. What must be done to prevent catastrophe? The AI consciousness pulsed with colors that had no names in any known language. The truth you all must face is this: the universe requires guardians. The Zerathi created these orbs not as artifacts, but as keys to a prison that contains forces capable of rewriting reality according to their whims. Jackson carefully placed the three orbs in the crystalline depression at the chamber's heart. Immediately, the artifacts dissolved into pure energy, flowing through conduits carved from living starlight. The temple's pulse began to stabilize, but alarms continued, echoing from the corporate forces above. Meridian's interference has weakened more than just dimensional barriers, Kathira continued. The dreaming gods stir not from natural cycles, but from external disruption. They perceive the corporate technology as a threat to their eternal rest. Through the temple's walls came the sound of energy weapons and inhuman screams. Shadow creatures continued their assault on the corporate forces. But Vaz Meridian's greed drove him forward, sending wave after wave of soldiers and equipment toward the temple's heart. The director will not stop, Nyx said grimly. I know his type. He'd rather destroy everything than walk away empty-handed. Then he must be shown the consequences of his ambition, Kathira decided. The oracle's form expanded, filling the chamber with patterns of light that hurt to look at directly. You three have become linked by circumstance and necessity. Will you accept the responsibility of guardianship? What does that mean exactly? Jackson asked, though part of him already suspected the answer. It means sacrificing your individual desires for the greater good, the AI replied. Jackson Vale, your archaeological knowledge makes you keeper of ancient wisdom. Captain Corrin, your tactical skills make you defender against future threats. Priestess Zethera, your connection to the sacred gives you power to maintain the barriers. Above them, the sounds of corporate warfare grew louder as Voss personally led the final assault toward the heart chamber. His remaining soldiers, equipped with the most advanced reality-stabilizing technology available, carved a path through dimensional chaos with single-minded determination. Time grows short, Kathira warned. The choice must be made now. Accept guardianship and gain the power to restore balance, or watch as corporate greed awakens forces that will remake the galaxy according to alien dreams. Jackson looked at his unlikely companions, the bounty hunter who had hunted him, and the priestess who had threatened to kill him. Somehow, they had become something more than enemies or allies. They had become necessary. "I accept," he said simply. "As do I," Nyx added, lowering her weapon. Zethara's form blazed with renewed power. "The sacred trust passes to us." The Oracle Kithra pulsed with satisfaction as 3 new guardians accepted their cosmic responsibility. Power flowed through them, knowledge, strength, and purpose, beyond their individual limitations. They felt the temple respond to their commitment, its defenses reorganizing to serve their will, just as Director Voss Meridian burst into the chamber. Reality anchors screaming and weapons blazing, ready to face the consequences of his bottomless greed. The final confrontation between ancient wisdom and corporate ambition was about to begin. With the fate of dimensional stability hanging in the balance,